Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. We are recapping the week's nerdy news from Thomas Curry's Lighthouse to Skull Island and everywhere in between. My name is Mike Gibson. With me, as always, is Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
Well, one thing, Mike, we're not talking about is the Planet of the Apes.
That's true.
So for anyone
Steve and I had a whole
we had quite the pre-roll
monkeys
conversation
versus
about
apes.
yeah.
That's really strange.
So yeah, if you want that, pretty soon we're going to be setting up Patreon tiers, and you can have yourself some pre-roll and other stupidity that comes out of this podcast. But until then,
Yeah.
you get to listen to Mike and I talk about nerd things once a week here. Well, more than once a week this week, and for the forthcoming couple weeks.
Yeah.
Because if you're not checking
Last
out our
couple weeks,
Ahsoka
too.
coverage, feel free to tune in every Wednesday. Is that what we're doing?
Wednesday. I have Wednesdays now, yeah.
Yep, we moved it because of conflicts, but you can watch the episode on Tuesday, get your fill of other people talking, and then listen to us on Wednesday.
Yeah, you give yourself a day to think about it, and then you tune in for what we think about it, and you can tell us if we're right or tell us if we're wrong. Yeah, Tuesdays are just a harder day, I think, for me, scheduling-wise, so Wednesdays turned out to be the way to go. But yeah, welcome to the Multiverse Report. We actually have a pretty solid rundown today after a couple weeks of what I called light news, despite us still talking way too long about everything and going on many tangents.
Yes.
We're doing strike stuff. We have some David Zaslav weirdness. We got some DC news. We got some Godzilla news. We're talking about a comic book movie adaptation tonight that's another rarity I don't believe we've ever talked about on this podcast. I could be wrong, but I don't think we ever have. Plus a comic book review of a book called Dwellings by Jay
We have talked about
Stevens.
the original. We have never talked about this. Yes.
We have talked about the original? I don't remember that. Okay.
It was briefly.
Refresh my
but
memory
we
when we
did.
get there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll get there. As always, this podcast is sponsored by Funky Town Comics in Camillus, New York. Check them out for all your comics and toys and vinyl needs.
You can even get all the comics that we'll be reviewing later in this podcast there.
Yes, you absolutely can. And many of them that we shall read that are coming out this week later in the podcast.
And for anyone listening, we're really professional at this because I set Mike up for a perfect pause exactly when he was taking a drink of his beverage.
Yeah. And I spoke while you were drinking a drink of your beverage.
We're good at this, guys.
We it's like we've been doing this a long time. And we have. Starting off tonight with as we always have been doing since the Writers Guild went on strike. Now the Writers Guild and SAG-AFTRA Screen Actors Guild is on strike as well. We have been opening with Strike Watch. I think we actually started doing this before they went on strike because we saw it coming. But anyway, a couple updates this week. There has been rumors and buzz that there is division on the studio side of things. Division specifically between like the Hollywood film studios and streamers. So like Amazon, Netflix holding out over things that maybe Disney or Warner Brothers would cave on and vice versa. But, Disney and Warner Brothers also have a stake in the streaming, but I think they get a lot of money from the theaters as well. So that could mean that they're getting ready to negotiate, or maybe some of them will break. Maybe they'll break and, film studios will make a deal before streamers will make a deal, or vice versa, or who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? But also, this was coming out, this blew up today that I saw. The Drew Barrymore talk show.
Today I learned
announced
that was a thing.
Oh, yeah. Yep. She started it during the pandemic, I think. And it's a pretty popular show. And I've never watched it, but I know that people love it and love her. I've seen clips of it and her being classic, adorable Drew Barrymore, funny and open and, very warm with her guests, and seems like a good show. However, they announced that they're going back into production They're going back into production today. They started filming new episodes of the Drew Barrymore talk show. This is being taken as a huge slap in the face to not necessarily the Screen Actors Guild, but the Writers Guild. Because although Drew Barrymore herself is a member of the Screen Actors Guild, this doesn't really count as acting. She's hosting. She's not pretending to play a part. She's not reading she's not reading dialogue. But normally, if you're hosting a talk show, you have writers and you are doing an opening monologue. You're reading questions to guests that are pre-written. You're doing banter with your whoever else that's also pre-written. So this is being taken as a slap in the face to the WGA, to the Writers Guild.
Yeah.
Because if she has anybody writing anything for her to say, then she's scabbing, and they're scabbing, and they're breaking the picket lines. And this is being seen as like, kind of like a crack in the wall of their solidarity that they've been able to maintain for months now. Months and months this has been going on. So they're saying that if this keeps happening, then other shows might start happening, and then it's a real break in the leverage that they have, because the biggest piece they have to play is their solidarity.
Right.
And if this is one crack, then it's a big crack. And there was even at the first filming was happening today, and apparently there was some audience members showed up wearing WGA support pins. And guess what? They were escorted out of the studio, asked to leave before taping. So that's not a good sign. So Drew Barrymore, come on, America's sweetheart. Now you're slapping your other industry members in the face here. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
That seems.
And I know, like, some people go ahead.
Oh no, it just seems weird after all this solidarity that especially someone of Drew Barrymore's stature is the one that's causing this fervor. Like I don't know if she's doing it for the people. Like she could just hand a check to the people that are working for her if that's her concern.
Exactly, Steve. Exactly. Set me up for the next point I was literally about to make anyway. A lot of people may remember, or people that are our age that remember the 2007 and 2008 writer strike.
Yep.
Conan O'Brien stayed on the air, and he would do a full show. He would do like 20 minutes or a half hour, and he would literally like spin a quarter on his desk and see how long he could get it to go. Like, like he wasn't doing really jokes or anything. Like, he's a funny guy, but he wasn't doing a monologue. He didn't have guests, and it was really just him, doing whatever dumb thing for 20 minutes just to like kind of show the importance of writers. And also, he paid his entire writing staff out of his own pocket, his entire crew for his show. He paid during that strike, kept them afloat on his own dime. Drew Barrymore could easily do that and be back on the air. She could be paying the salaries of these people. She is a multimillionaire. She's been a famous actress since she was a child. She's got enough money to handle this. So if she wanted to do that, then put your show back on the air. If you're paying these people, if you're making your own deal, then yes, get back on the air. Great, but you're not. So it's kind of looking like scabbing behavior here, Drew. And she released a statement today saying that she owns this decision and that she's doing it for her crew and stuff, and that's virtuous. Of course, you have camera people and producers and things that also have not been able to work because of the strike, but come on. Solidarity is the number one thing. Everybody should be in support of the guild, getting what they deserve. So that's happening.
She's still making that ET bank, man.
Exactly. When she was like 6 or whatever. I don't know how old she was in ET, but it was less than 10 years old. Yeah. So she's rolling in it. She got plenty of money. Also, good old Warner Brothers Discovery.
It would not be a Multiverse Report if we did not have something weird coming out of Warner Brothers.
Yeah. We got 2 bangers tonight. Things coming out of Warner Brothers. One of them is definitely strike related, and this was I read that this was this was seemingly done as a way to sow division amongst writers and people that are in the guild, people that are striking. That Warner Brothers has suspended production deals that they had in place with a number of creators. And I guess they did this early on in the strike. There's a second wave of them. They've suspended their deals with Greg Berlanti, the guy behind all of the CW, DC shows and other stuff, but that's what he's most known for. Mindy Kaling and her production company, and also J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot. J.J. Abrams had a deal with Warner Brothers. Specifically, it was with DC for a while, and I think that kind of faded once James Gunn took over. But these are people who production companies had been in long-term production deals with the studio, multi-million-dollar deals.
Yeah.
And yeah, just kind of done to like, okay, now these production deals are suspended, so there's even less of a chance that a job's going to be waiting for somebody when the strike is over. And maybe if J.J. Abrams gets angry or these powerful people or powerful producers, if they get upset that their deal is suspended, then they'll push one way or the other for negotiations to go back. Like, it's just a bullshit tactic. But flying in the face of this, Greg Berlanti turned around, I think, the next day and donated $500,000 to the WGA relief fund.
Yeah, that's not bad.
As kind of a way, which is great. Like, way to go. A way to kind of step up and say, you know what, I don't care. You suspend my deal. I'm still in solidarity. It's not going to make me change my mind about who's right in this situation.
Right. And this is our weekly moment to say, no matter what we're reporting on this strike watch, we're also 100% behind what the writers and actors are doing here.
Yes, 100%. 100%. I also just read later this evening that Steven Spielberg and his wife, Kate Capshaw, just donated a sizable amount to the relief fund as well. So good for them.
Good guy, Steven Spielberg.
That's Steven Spielberg.
Also of E.T. fame. This is the All E.T. podcast.
Yeah. Maybe he's like, hey, I'm sorry that I hooked Drew Barrymore up with so much wealth when she was a child.
At
Putting her in E.T.
At an early date.
I'm sorry she's doing this. I will try to do what I can to compensate. All right.
Who else? There was somebody else that was in that movie that I'm thinking that was like a big name.
E.T.?
Yeah.
Henry Thomas was the kid's name.
Yeah.
The mom's name. Mom was also the mom in Cujo.
C. Thomas Howell was kind of a
D.
Wallace.
Something. D. Wallace is the woman's name. Yes.
Peter Coyote.
Are you thinking of
Robert McNaughton?
E.T. himself?
Maybe.
Because shockingly, E.T. didn't really have a big career after that. He literally just went home to his home planet, and he wasn't in any other movies.
I mean, he was in The Phantom Menace.
Oh, you're right. You're right. I'm sorry. He had a cameo in The Phantom Menace. He came back years later. That was a big deal.
It was.
They must have
when people saw that.
They must have really sent him a good check to get him to come back just
Seriously.
for The Phantom Menace.
This is
And
a long trip.
two of his family members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a real long trip to film that.
Yeah. Yeah. He also might have done a commercial at some point. I think I remember seeing a commercial.
Was it for like AT&T or MCI or something?
I think it was.
And yes,
yeah.
I did reference MCI.
It was a commercial that made me think that they were making a sequel to E.T. I remember seeing it when I was a kid and thinking they made a sequel, and my heart being crushed that they did not make a sequel to E.T.
I'm assuming you had to phone home during the commercial.
Most likely.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Because without those writers, you end up with things like that.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Enough E.T. banter. Unless, did you want to just talk about E.T. for the next hour? We could just keep.
It wouldn't be the first time we've gone
train that we
completely
got.
off the rails, but I think we should probably get back on the DC train.
We should. E.T. is a great movie, though.
It really is.
I will say that. I stand in solidarity with E.T. That's a good movie. I tried to show it to my son, and he was scared by the first 5 minutes of it, so he turned it off.
Do you think that species unionized for the Phantom Menace cameo?
I'm sure that they did, because it's not just him. They probably just wanted E.T., and he was like, no, you're going to pay my family and put 2 members of my family in this also. Because it's 3 of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
Isn't there 3 of them in that little box?
Yep.
Senate box.
You gotta put the oh god, what was the candy bar?
Oh, Reese's Pieces.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah,
Gotta put
maybe
those
they
Reese's
just got
on the
paid in
table.
Reese's Pieces. They probably just got paid in Reese's Pieces.
Yeah,
They probably got paid in Reese's Pieces and Earth Plant Life,
right.
Because that's what they were collecting. Yeah,
your credits are no good here.
your credits.
Only
yeah,
Reese's
exactly.
Pieces. Sorry.
Yep. Yeah. If you are watching or listening and just for the first time learned that E.T. is in the Phantom Menace, let us know. Send us an email. We'll tell you exactly where to find him. He's in one of the Senate scenes, but if you want to know, we'll come back next week with a timestamp for you if you want. Hell, let us know. Anyway, let's try to relate every story back to E.T. for the rest of the episode.
Challenge
See
accepted.
if we can do that. David Zaslav was speaking at some industry conference. I didn't even write down. And he said something interesting. So I'm not sure how I feel about it. But he's talking about. I bet you do. I bet you do. So, in addressing, he was doing some kind of speech and addressing the crowd of. I don't remember. I think it was like investors crowd, or
knowing him, probably that sounds
probably.
Right.
Yeah. He's talking about Warner Brothers and their plans for the future. He said one of the other real strengths of Warner Brothers is we talk about the great IP that Warner Brothers owns. But for us, the challenge is that our content, our great IP, Harry Potter, DC, Lord of the Rings, that content has been underused. And he went on to say that they haven't had a, quote, long-form Superman project since 2013's Man of Steel. Now, that's not completely correct because of Superman and Lois, but Warner Brothers is not the majority stakeholder in the CW, so they're not technically counting that, I guess, as their long-form Superman content. Like, they partially own the CW, but because it's not wholly Warner Brothers, I guess they're not counting that. And then he goes on to say,
Superman?
What's that?
What about My Pal Superman or whatever the
the cartoon? Yeah. Zaslav strikes me as someone that does not see animation as a real form of art.
Zaslav seems like a lot of things. We can get into that in a couple minutes after you finish the
book. Yeah, okay. He goes on to say, we haven't done anything with Harry Potter for more than a decade. We haven't done anything with Lord of the Rings. They went on to say that they want to, quote, be careful to not overuse their content, although he already said that it's underused. We don't want to overuse the content, but he said that they have a, quote, 10-year plan around DC, which we've heard about because that's what the whole James Gunn thing is. And then said, quote, we are bringing Harry Potter back to HBO for 10 consecutive years and doing multiple movies of Lord of the Rings. So we know what he means by the DC 10-year plan. The DC 10-year plan is the James Gunn and Peter Safran new DCU reboot, starting with Superman Legacy and Creature Commandos. We've talked about that so much. We know what that means. We don't really talk about Harry Potter on the show too much because I don't think either of us really care about it, and J.K. Rowling is a massive TERF. And if you don't know what a TERF is, you can look it up. But
TERF.
Steve and I believe TERF. And Steve and I believe that trans rights are human rights. And so we don't really want to give too much air time talking about J.K. Rowling. So that's why we don't talk about Harry Potter. But we'll dabble in it for this. And then multiple movies of Lord of the Rings. Steve, we already got a trilogy of Lord of the Rings movies from Warner Brothers and a trilogy of terrible Hobbit movies from Warner Brothers.
Which, going back, they weren't as bad as they were the first time I saw them, but still,
oh, really?
suboptimal.
Okay. I think just in comparison, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they added...
night and day.
They took a 120-page children's book and turned it into 3 movies for some ungodly reason. But
for money.
Either way.
Money
I guess that is the ungodly reason.
Yeah.
So have we had no, never mind. We've had plenty of quotes from David Zaslav that fit the bill for I have no freaking idea what the hell I'm talking about. This would be one in a plethora of them. Underused your IP that you've been shoving DC movies out left and right for how long? And
I know,
like, there's no underusing. Like the Harry Potter stuff, You took a break because you finished the movies. You didn't take a break. You tried to
Right.
put out Fantastic Beasts, and they
Yeah.
were all bad.
Yeah. Yes.
And
I
like
think
Lord of
with
the
those
Rings, like
two-
you said, you have the trilogy that's great, and then you have
Yeah.
the Hobbit movies that are meh. And then what else are you going to mine? You
And
don't have the
you're
rights
out
to the
of material.
Legendarium,
Yes,
to the rest of
exactly.
Legendarium. Like, what are you going to do? Is he threatening that they're going to remake the Peter Jackson movies? Because I thought I had heard rumblings of that, and I don't want that to happen.
That is my fear, that he is saying that they're going to remake the Lord
Right.
of the Rings,
Which is what they're doing with
films.
Harry Potter. They're taking the 7
They're doing
films
a series, right?
and doing 10 years of
A series.
series. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the issue isn't that you've underused them, it's you've used them shittily. Like there's no
Yes.
there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You've used them just completely in the wrong ways. It's exactly what we're
Yeah.
talking about Marvel doing currently. It's exactly what we were talking about when Barbie came out, and every studio exec was like, you know what the answer is? We need to make more toy movies. It's like, no,
Right.
that's not
Yeah.
the answer, you ass wagons. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
make movies that don't suck. Make movies that, not a toy movie. That's a movie about toys. That's not about toys. Like Barbie has very limited to do with the fact that it's Barbie.
That it's a toy. Yeah, exactly.
Come on, guys. Like, pull your shit together.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think him saying underused is him trying to make his point without saying, we've made a bunch of stuff that people haven't really liked.
Right.
We've made bad stuff. And
Oh, this
you
was
know,
at a
I think
Goldman
both-
Sachs conference, for the record.
that's, Goldman Sachs.
Because,
yeah, so
of course.
rich people with money investing, whatever. He's trying to get them on. Yeah, so he doesn't want to say like, yeah, we made some good DC movies and some bad ones. We made some good Harry Potter movies and some bad ones. Also, like, straight up, I feel like when he says we haven't done anything with Harry Potter for more than a decade, he means Daniel Radcliffe as literally the character of Harry Potter. He's not even thinking about the Fantastic Beasts movies, because that's a straight up lie. Like, the Fantastic Beasts movies take place in that same universe.
I bet you he doesn't
and
even
they
know they
came
made
out
them.
last year.
I bet you he
Right,
doesn't even
it's
know they
possible
made
he
them.
doesn't even know. Because they're not called Harry Potter and the Fantastic Beasts. It's possible that he doesn't even know. I agree with that.
Right. He doesn't know what a wizarding world is. He just hears Harry
Yeah.
Potter.
Right.
Out of Touch CEO. I'll take Out of Touch CEO for 500, Alex. That'd be great.
Yeah. So you got to be nervous that he's straight up saying we're going to bring Harry Potter back for 10 years. That's like, how many films or how many film studios try to jump on the Marvel wagon by saying we're going to build a cinematic universe, and they make one or two movies and they're terrible and they flop. You know what I mean?
Speak on what Amazon is currently doing with Lord of the Rings. They committed to 5 years.
That's the other thing too.
Like, we haven't even talked about the fact that season 2 of Wheel of Time is out. They're screwing that up. Rings of Power will be coming out. Yeah. Wheel of Time season 2 came out September 1st, and there wasn't even a titter around the Nerdverse on it. I completely forgot it until this week when I started watching it again.
Wow. I mean, I'm not like a fan of it, but I didn't know that it was out at all. I didn't hear one thing about it.
There was nothing.
Wow.
We don't have do we even have a date for Rings of Power season 2? Like,
no, but I'm sure that stopped because of the strike, because they were still filming that when the strikes happened. So
yeah, so but like, yeah, the whole
but
thing.
that's not Warner Brothers though.
No,
that's
but
Amazon making
that's
the Rings of
like-
Power.
You're trying to if you're going to remake the Peter Jackson trilogy or something analog to that, or do something that isn't an original thought in that space, like, look at how much people are complaining about Rings of Power. Personally, I thought it was a decent show.
I thought it was great. I liked it a lot.
But like, I don't know. It's just like, come up with a new idea somewhere. You don't have to just remake everything or use existing IP.
Yeah. Right. I mean, of these three, DC is the one that has the most. I agree with him about the DC stuff, that it has the most untapped potential, because they have never known how to do how to build a DC universe. Never. They've had fits and starts, some success, some failure. But it's never really gotten off the ground. Like anyone will tell you that. It's never really gotten off the ground. Harry Potter was a tremendous like box office smash for those 7 films. You know, they were all like huge hits, record-breaking films. Like some of them were in the top, like highest-grossing films of all time.
Yeah.
And Lord of the Rings too. Like those Hobbit movies, not great, but they still crushed the box office. And the original trilogy crushed as well, and won Best Picture. The third one, Return of the King, won Best Picture. So like those two, I don't think you can say those are like those have proven to have had success. DC is underutilized, I think. I don't think it's underused, but it hasn't been used correctly, I guess. That's the way I would put that. And he's making changes with that, great, but I don't know. He's coming out saying like, yeah, we're going to have 10 years of Harry Potter series. Like, what if it's bad, David? What if it's bad? Or what if people like me and Steve, who may have watched it before J.K. Rowling opened her mouth about trans people, now will refuse to watch it? Like, you know, her stock has plummeted, I think, since she has started running her mouth. So that's not as much of a guarantee as it was, you know, 5 years ago, even. Lord of the Rings is just a big question mark. Lord of the Rings is like, what are you even going to do? You've already done it. You've done the original books. You've done almost perfectly already, and people still lose their minds over those movies. And it doesn't seem that long ago that you made them. I guess it was a while ago, over 10 years for sure, that those movies were made. But I don't know. It's just, I don't know. Unless you're doing original stories within the Lord of the Rings franchise. But then, to your point, people didn't love the Amazon show because of that.
Yeah.
Because they were playing with the mythology. I didn't mind it at all. I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But
after I got over, it's one of those where I was able to dissociate, and I feel like a lot of people are not.
Oh,
it's like,
for sure.
This is a different interpretation. It's fine.
Right. Yeah. Right.
But like,
anyway,
why
he said those things?
I don't know. Why do they mention those? Why don't they like? Why aren't they? And this is blasphemy, but like, why are you worried about stuff you made 10 years ago instead of remaking Casablanca or Clash of the Titans or something?
I know there's certainly
they own the rights to those.
Yeah, there's other things they could do for sure, but I think Hollywood in general is at a place where they, especially during the strikes, I think they are scared of new ideas failing.
Make a new police academy.
Like right? Yeah, right. Yeah. I just think that Hollywood is they're just always playing the safe bets. It's so rare that they're not really taking big swings anymore. It's like sequels or reboots or just what studio said that they were only going to focus on existing IP? Didn't we read that recently?
Yeah,
like there was some studio that said they were not going to do any new ideas. Like, okay, great. Can't wait to get bored by your content in 5 years.
But then the DC point. The best DC show that's been made wasn't even made by Warner Brothers.
Watchmen?
No,
that was HBO.
We're going to talk about it in 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Like, it's a DC property,
but it
wasn't.
Didn't air on Warner. Yeah, Sandman.
They didn't pay for it. They didn't do anything for it. They slapped their name on it. That's all DC did. Or that's all Warner did with it, is because they owned the DC IP, but Netflix did all the development and everything. Like, it's proof that their IP can be used in a way that doesn't suck. Yeah. And you and I have read plenty of things that don't suck from DC. So, like...
Yeah. But that's also an example, like... I don't know why the Sandman wasn't on HBO Max. I think it should have been.
Yeah.
But that's like an exception to the rule of DC stuff, where it's like, oh, this is outside of, like, not everything needs to be a connected universe. I think he looks at DC as being, he calls it underused, which is not, like we said, it's not underused. It's just been used poorly. It's not underused. He sees it as being underused because it's not breaking the box office like Marvel was. for such a long time.
Right.
And it's not, the second highest, like whatever, Justice League's not the second highest grossing movie of all time, like Avengers Endgame or something. So he sees that. He sees Marvel pumping out box office hit after box office hit, and sees that DC must be underused. But like, it's not really, because DC is big. Like, DC's got Sandman. DC's also has Watchmen. Like, all these things are like, that's all the DC banner. Very diverse. But
Dude,
all he sees is like capes and tights and box office.
Make a Human Target series.
They did once.
1992, but like make a modern one.
Yeah. I know. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I agree. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah,
I agree.
I don't know.
So it'll be interesting to see if we get more specificity around what he means by doing multiple Lord of the Rings movies. Like, that's the most interesting thing out of the thing that I'm most interested out of this quote, is what does he mean by that, and when are we going to get more information on that, and what would that possibly be that wouldn't be offensive to fans. But moving out of that and moving into DC,
the most pumped. I just realized that might be the most fired up I've gotten over a DC topic we've had.
Yeah,
You're
like a Warner Brothers
corrupting
thing.
me.
Welcome to the fold. Welcome to being a DC fan. It's rough,
Extremely
when it
frustrating.
comes to films.
Well,
Yeah, or
trust
it
me,
has been.
It's not been great.
Hopefully,
On
you're
the Marvel
getting in on
side
the
lately.
tail end of the rough. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, now the scales are looking like they're tipping, right? Like, Marvel's future is like, I don't know, but like, ooh, James Gunn, that's might be fun. Yeah. Interesting. We'll see what happens there.
Well, here's something we
speaking
might
of
have
DC,
some thoughts on whether it's fun or not.
yeah, I am interested to hear your thoughts. We got a teaser and a trailer announcement. We got a 30-second teaser and full trailer announcement for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. This is the sequel to the billion-dollar grossing film Aquaman. 30-second teaser. The full trailer's coming out Thursday. So next week at our main episode, we will be talking about the full trailer for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. That comes out in December, and it will be the final film in the DC Extended Universe canon that started with Man of Steel and is to be rebooted when things like Creature Commandos, Waller, and Superman Legacy happen. So, 30-second teaser. I watched it. Steve, throwing it to you first. What'd you think? I mean, it's not much. It's like flashes. We see Aquaman, obviously. We see his brother Orm. We see Black Manta. We see a house burning and a bunch of weird shit.
Well, I would assume that's his old lighthouse.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's his.
As far as
home,
location,
his father's home.
Yeah. I don't
Refresh
know.
my memory. Did you see Aquaman?
Yeah. Yep.
You hit it. Okay.
And my take on Aquaman, the OG Aquaman, was it was fun. It was visually solid, and I left it not caring about anything.
Sure. Yeah.
And this trailer looks almost exactly the same.
I completely agree. I think it looks shockingly exactly like the first movie.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I guess I don't know why I'm surprised by that, because it's the same director and assumedly it's the same creative team. So why shouldn't it look exactly like the first movie? But a lot of times with a sequel, they try to switch things up or put things through a different, filter or lens or whatever. But like, nah, it's just like looked like more batshit crazy Aquaman visuals, which is something that I loved about the first one. And I am pretty much on the same page with you, where I think that movie visually stunning and spectacular. Plot doesn't really make a ton of sense, but I will revisit Aquaman more frequently than I probably should, just because it looks super cool. It has some like legitimate great action scenes in it and really great sequences in it. Dialogue's terrible. Lots of it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Dialogue's terrible, really? And
really,
guess what? We got that in the trailer too. Yahya Abdul-Mateen looks the part, looks amazing, and literally
Yeah.
stands there and says, Aquaman needs to die. He's bad. Goodbye. I'm like, what?
I thought it was a little better than that. I thought it was a little more intense than that.
I mean, like, I don't know. Give me something more than canned diatribe that's like, I don't know. It said like, oh, sweet, he still looks cool. Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
It's not going to change.
There was
how
a
it's
really
written.
There was a really great one of the last quick shots of it was like the two of them like fighting
Yeah,
or
that
something.
was good.
And I just love like Black Manta is such a goofy looking character that the fact that I'm seeing him in live action just makes me smile. I'm just like, I can't believe I'm watching it. And that's how I feel when I watch the first one too. And he's like
Right.
fighting on a cliffside and shooting giant lasers out of his giant stupid helmet. I'm like, I can't believe this is in a movie, and I love every second of it.
Yep.
Real quick shot of him riding riding on a seahorse.
Mhm.
And in the golden age of DC Comics, I believe, or Silver Age, or both, Aquaman had a pet seahorse. It was like his version of like Crypto, the super dog. I believe the seahorse's name was Storm. So if they're introducing Storm, Aquaman's pet giant seahorse, I will be very happy about that.
So
I just like seeing crazy, all the crazy underwater stuff is.
Yeah, I don't know how
I
they're
just
going to
love it.
incorporate him into the League of Super Pets, though.
Well, you never know. You never know.
It's true. In that the story you linked in the rundown, it says the return of Amber Heard, Willem Dafoe, Dolph Lundgren. Who was
Yeah.
Dolph Lundgren?
Dolph Lundgren was Amber Heard's father in
Okay.
that movie. He was one of the kings or something.
Tamara
that,
Morrison
like-
was Jason Momoa's dad,
Yep.
and then Nicole
Um,
Kidman, and then Randall Park.
Randall Park had a very small part in I'm like a Aquaman scholar over here.
Apparently,
Had a very small part. He was like on a television. He was a crazy scientist, like convinced that Atlantis was real and that these sightings of the Aquaman were true, and he was really out there. And I think at the end, somehow, Black Manta wakes up and is with Randall Park's character. It might have been the post-credit scene or the last scene in the movie.
okay.
Where he was like, "Where's Aquaman?" Like shaking Randall Park or whatever, like when he woke up from his coma or something.
So Randall Park.
So he may have a
plays-
bigger part in this movie.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of the unassuming scientist role versus the unassuming police officer role in his MCU career.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Full trailer on Thursday. I'm excited based on the little clip,
Yeah.
and I'm going into that movie fully aware it's probably gonna be bad, but I'm just gonna enjoy the visuals
Dude,
like I did with the first one. I'm just gonna try
join
to
the
have fun with it.
world of no expectations. It's the best place to be.
Yeah, I know, man. Sometimes I just can't help it. I know that it's bad. It's the best place to be when you have no expectations and you just can have fun. And I've done it before. I've been able to do it with properties I hold dear to my heart, which is one of the reasons that I enjoy a little movie called Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. But I fully admit that is like I have to temper expectations anytime that I watch that movie. So it's gonna be the same thing with Aquaman 2, but I'm definitely gonna see it when it comes out for sure. Something else that I'm excited about, DC related, they announced not too long ago that they're making some new DC animated films, one of them being Crisis on Infinite Earths, the first multiverse story that took place in any comic book, but originated from DC comic books when they were trying to realign their universe, and there's a whole multiple worlds thing that was introduced, and it's a seminal story in the pages of DC Comics. They announced that they're making an animated film. Now that film is rumored to be 3 different films, a trilogy of Crisis on Infinite Earths. Huge eye roll from Steve, and I kind of agree with you. Seems like too much. But this is only based on hearsay. It's not even really confirmed by Warner Brothers or anything. It's just saying that apparently somebody posted a copy or a photo of animation director Mike Milo. He's one of the animation directors for Crisis on Infinite Earths. Had a shot of his resume, and they posted it to Reddit. And on the resume, it was listed as animation director of Justice League Crisis 1, 2, and 3. So it didn't specify Crisis on Infinite Earths, and the weird thing is that Crisis was spelled Crysis. Crisis. I don't know what that means, but
It's
it could be
3 full movies of Batman crying to Superman about something.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Or are there sisters in the DC? Like whoever's a sister, like crying sister. Maybe that's what it means.
There you go.
Cry, sis. Cry, comma, sis. 1, 2, and 3. 3 movies with that. Steve, I agree with your eye roll that I rather this not be a trilogy of animated films unless they're like, if they're each an hour long, fine.
Right.
But I don't need like a 90 to 100-minute long trilogy, like 3 movies that are that length in a row telling this one story. Again, it's a big story. It's long and it's complicated. So, I mean, I guess the story is there to take up that much, but like, I don't know, man. I don't think I would sit through 3 movies, to be honest with you.
No, you would. Eventually.
Yeah. Eventually.
But yeah, I mean, it's like, just like any large crossover, there's plenty of fluff to cut out. And you can trim it away from, like, make it 1 2.5 hour animated feature, make it 1 whatever, like, do whatever you need to, but 3 movies?
Yeah. Like, I'm sure there's a way to simplify something, to cut something down. Like,
you could do it in live action in less than 3 movies.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see what happens with that. Another small DC story to round out the DC section here. Netflix, Steve referenced this earlier, the Sandman show that they made for Netflix is being released physically and digitally. It was Disney Plus, we talked about recently, is releasing some of their shows physically. And Netflix seldom does this. I think they do it with like Stranger Things, maybe a couple of their other hits, but it's not like they're putting all their original stuff out on other platforms, whether it's digital or physical. We're getting a digital version of Sandman is available to buy or download on September 18th, very soon, next week from yesterday. And the physical will be available at the end of November 28th. And I don't know that I'll buy this physically, but I might, because we talked about a couple weeks ago with the Disney stuff, like streamers are suddenly pulling stuff, canceling stuff. Things that you thought were going to be available online forever suddenly just don't exist anymore, like Willow or other shows. Not that it was released, but like Batgirl was an almost finished film that now no one will ever see. So, and this show is great. Like Steve, you said this is one of your favorite DC shows that you've ever seen. So
yeah, I mean, hands down, and
I think it might
in my opinion, it's the best DC show they've made. I mean, it was a
over Watchmen.
Oh yeah, shit.
Yeah,
second best show they've ever made.
Over Peacemaker.
Yes.
Okay.
Peacemaker was a lot more fun. And
oh yeah,
like
yeah.
But and Peacemaker's probably more rewatchable. But like Sandman, every single episode just kept me enraptured.
Yeah, I agree.
And it was like,
I agree.
It was a solid retelling of the source. It hit all the right notes.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would never make my wife watch it because it was frightening as shit in points.
Yeah, for sure. And they are making a season 2, and I feel like it's possible that we might see more announcements like this during the strike, because like streamers are probably just like, okay, well, how are we going to be making money if we're not making new film and television? Oh, well, let's release some of the stuff that we have and see if people will buy it. And you know what? They probably will.
So I did see, while you were talking about the Netflix thing, the last thing they released was Stranger Things season 2.
Whoa, they haven't even done the other.
No, it's been seasons. A while since they've released physical media.
Wow, that's even a bigger shock then.
Yeah.
Well, I know. Yeah, Sandman was a huge hit for them, so it makes sense they would pick this one to be the next physical release. But shocking that they haven't done the next 2 Stranger Things seasons, especially because everyone loved 4. I feel like 4 was like a huge hit. And I remember reviews of 3 being like meh, though I remember liking it Although I don't think I could tell you what happened in it at all. But then 4 I think was a big success for them. So
I mean, 4 made
weird that they
Kate
haven't done
Bush a household name again,
that's right. That's right. It did.
and also Metallica.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that scene was just great. But
So cool. So yeah, more physical media. I think that again, I think this is, you know, there's so many people that think physical media is dead and worthless, but you know, the more the streaming bubble starts bursting and things start crumbling, I don't know. We may see a rise in physical media again. Who knows what the next show that's going to be pulled or the next movie. You know, actually, I have a quick tangent to go on about a win for physical media that I experienced recently. Not long ago, within the last 2 weeks, I would say. You know, I'm somebody listeners of this show should know, I'm a big fan of spooky season. I'm a big Halloween guy. I enjoy a horror movie
and this
now
will
and then.
come up later in the podcast as well during our comic reviews.
It will. And you know, now it's September. I look at September as like prelude, kind of like spooky season part 1, but it's more like casual spooky season, and then October is like hardcore spooky season, right? Soon as like fall vibes start hitting. So, but you know, I tend to kind of start jumping the gun a little bit. Late August, I'm like, feel like watching some horror movies, kind of set the mood for like, you know, where my brain is starting to lean into. But I was like, but it's still really hot outside. It's summertime. What movie could I watch that kind of like fits this vibe that I'm in? Oh, Friday the 13th. Movie about kids at a summer camp getting killed. I'll watch Friday the 13th. Guess what's not streaming anywhere? Friday the 13th. Yeah, for free. Like the reboot is available on like a couple streamers, and that reboot's all right, but like I want to watch like the original films.
Yeah.
Like part 2 is my favorite one, so like I want to watch that one, or I want to watch the original. You know.
Okay.
But
I didn't know that, but I'll give you that.
It's really good, dude.
Yeah,
it's really good.
I mean, I still will always hold the OG in like high regard. And
sure, me too.
I think that's always what I go to, but I get where you're going with part 2.
Yeah, part 2 is really good.
Yeah.
But I couldn't find it anywhere. Like I didn't want to buy. I don't know. I'm like looking. Okay, well, do I need to spend $10 on what movie, whatever? I don't know. I just went to Amazon and I looked. I was like, maybe there's like a set of like 1 and 2, like a Blu-ray set of like the first 2 or first 3 or whatever. Steve, I got for $35. I got a Blu-ray set of the first 8 Friday the 13th movies for $35, and they all fit in one little Blu-ray thing. They're all packaged, so it's like it takes up the space of one movie. Wow. I was like, I'm buying this 100%.
Yeah.
And I own them forever.
I don't even like hell. I'm not going to go back and rewatch more than 1 or 2, but I would buy that in a heartbeat.
Worth it. Because a lot of times you buy, no matter how old it is, a lot of times if you buy the movie digitally, it's like $20 or $15 or something. So like, okay, I guess I can spend $20 on one movie, or I can spend $35 on 8 of them. Great.
You couldn't rent those 8 movies for less than what you bought them for.
Yeah. Right. Anyway, so
now, for any of you younger folk, back in the day, to rent a movie, you had to go to a store.
Yeah.
And buy a VHS tape, and then get yelled at for not rewinding it.
I kind of miss those days. I do and I don't, because I like just sitting on my couch and being like, oh, I can do this right here. Correct. But also, like, there was some fun about like going with your friends and like
picking out the wall of
just looking at a cover and being like, this looks weird. Let's get this. Right. Like so many times we'd be like, this looks fucked up. Let's watch this movie. You know,
let's go watch this, and then you get it and you're like, that was really bad. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes, but that's also fun if you're like watching it with your friends. Yeah, like, well, this sucked. Let's make fun of it for an hour and a half. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mystery Science Theater.
Anyway.
All day.
Exactly. Anyway, we're old. Doing some miscellaneous. We got a few stories that don't necessarily fall into a specific category. So we don't talk about this for too long, but apparently Rotten Tomatoes, the site that everyone loves and fawns over for their movie reviews. I mean, not to pat myself on the back, but I've never really put too much stock in it. And I'm glad I didn't, because apparently Rotten Tomatoes is a bunch of bullshit. And a movie promotion company called Bunker 15 had been for the last 5 years or so paying lower level reviewers $50 each per review, per positive review. And they weren't going after people that work for like the Hollywood Reporter or Vulture or, you know, actual like reputable review sites and outlets, but you know, lower like bloggers, people like you and me, Steve.
Right, they'd give us
you know,
$50 to do it.
people or a few rungs up from us that actually qualify as like,
Right.
you know, I don't know how you qualify to be a official reviewer on Rotten Tomatoes, but you got to do, I think, more than what you and me are doing. And they've been doing that for a long time, trying to get their movies certified fresh. And that is gaming the system and wholly a lie. So I am going to continue to not put too much stock in Rotten Tomatoes, and I don't think anyone else should either. I think you
No,
should
think I'm with
find a critic that you trust or that you believe to be reputable, seek out reviews from reputable sources.
Almost like you should with all news.
With all news,
Yeah,
exactly.
weird.
Don't just go to one source that clearly can be easily manipulated.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. this is like the worst kept secret in movie reviews to my knowledge, but for some reason Rotten Tomatoes has always been like held in regard. So now we're here to tell you not to.
I think people that kind of like pay attention to these kinds of stories and are like, you know, like you and me or whatever, that are care about like the industry and read things like this and talk about movies and productions and things. I think those kinds of people kind of know Rotten Tomatoes is nothing. But, you know, the general public that just want to see a movie or whatever, like, oh, I can just go to this one site and they'll tell me the whole average of what's good and bad. I think they were probably more shocked by it. But anyway, now everybody knows because everybody listens to this podcast. So, Steve, you're telling me, I mentioned that we were going to talk about a property that we had never spoken about on this podcast. You seem to remember that at least one time in the past we have talked about The Crow. We talked about The Crow?
I believe it was in relation to some of the horrible, horrible sequels that were made about The Crow. But The Crow has 100% come up on the podcast, and I believe both you and I have expressed our enjoyment of the original movie.
I do. I think I only saw it once, but I do remember enjoying it. Thinking that it was like a little cheesy, but liking it at the same time.
And remember, 1990s comic book movie.
Oh, for sure. Like, I was definitely excited to be watching. I've said this before. Like, it was just anything that resembled a superhero movie. I was like, yes, give it to me. Rocketeer, yes. The Shadow, yes. The Crow, yes. Like, anything. And this was a straight adaptation of a comic book. So I watched it at a friend's house. Thought it was cool, but clearly didn't get into my soul the way other things did. But here we are talking about The Crow. After many years being stuck in development hell, a new version of The Crow will be coming out next year. There is no specific release date. The movie itself, sorry, I'm pulling out something else here. The movie stars Bill Skarsgård, Pennywise himself, FKA Twigs, and Danny Huston. Danny Huston was one of the villains in the Wonder Woman movie. He's like a guy, you look up his face, you're like, oh, I've seen that guy in a million things. It's going to be directed by a guy named Rupert Sanders. It was filmed last year. The movie's already made, but it just got distribution through Lionsgate. Apparently they didn't know who was going to be distributing it. But here we are with The Crow. And I was trying to look up real quick while I was talking. If you don't know, I can't really find too much information on it exactly.
The premise of The Crow?
Or no, just the origins of the comic itself. But
94.
Oh, there it is.
James O'Barr.
Yes. Okay, I just found it as well. The first movie starred the late Brandon Lee, and I think part of the reason that the movie, I mean, not to be morbid, but I think part of the reason that the movie was very popular is that Brandon Lee famously died while filming it. There was a gun on set that was it I don't remember, was it actually a loaded gun and not a prop gun, or was it like a mistake and the prop gun had a real bullet in it? I don't know. It was some weird thing where he was shot. There was a scene where he was supposed to get shot at, and there was a real
So
bullet in there. And he got shot.
usually prop guns are loaded with dummy rounds.
Yeah.
And apparently these dummy rounds were improperly prepared. So they were improvised from live cartridges, and apparently something was actually expelled from the gun.
Right.
And unfortunately for everyone, Brandon Lee passed during the filming in the middle of filming of the scene.
Yep. And they're somehow able to finish the film either with shots that they had already completed, or I think body doubles, things like that, for scenes where you didn't have to see his face. But yeah, the storyline is basically he's a musician who is murdered and then is kind of Ghost Rider-y, similar to Ghost Rider. He's granted the power to return from the dead in order to seek vengeance on those who killed him. So it was a popular movie when it came out, and they made, like you said, Steve, several sequels that I think got increasingly worse.
They did. Yes.
And they've been trying to reboot it or make another sequel for a really long time. Like I said, it's been in development.
The soundtracks did continue to be high quality.
Always a good soundtrack, for sure. And just so you know how many times they've tried to make this movie, since the idea of a Crow reboot, which I think was in the mid to late 2000s, a lot of different actors have been in talks or officially cast in a Crow reboot, all of them falling apart. Some of those actors include Mark Wahlberg, Bradley Cooper, Channing Tatum, James McAvoy, Luke Evans, Ryan Gosling, Alexander Skarsgård, Tom Hiddleston, and Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa was the most recent one to be cast and then eventually walk away from the troubled production. But now it's coming out. Bill Skarsgård as the Crow.
So
how excited are you about a new Crow movie?
Sure. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it's just on the pile of other things they're making that are reboots of something else. Take a wild stab at what the first Crow sequel, which was The Crow City of Angels, on the aforementioned Rotten Tomatoes, this would have been long before paying for shit.
Sure.
Take a stab at what the approval rating is.
15%.
You would have failed on The Price is Right.
11. I went over?
11%.
11. Oh,
yeah.
That's a dog shit score right there.
Not great by any
Ooh,
stretch.
boy.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
Meanwhile, the original was an 84% on said review site. But they also made
big difference.
Yeah, they made two other sequels, Salvation and Wicked Prayer. I don't believe any of which were quite phenomenal. But yeah, here we are.
It's interesting. We'll see. We'll see if the world is ready for a new The Crow. Seems like a movie. I mean, they were clearly trying to make it for a long time, but it seems like a movie they should have come out a long time ago, like a reboot.
Ernie Hudson was in the original.
I don't remember Ernie Hudson being in the original.
I don't either.
But I believe you. I don't think you're lying to me. Interesting. All right, last real piece of news. Another trailer or teaser trailer that we got. And this teaser trailer, like the Aquaman one, made me very excited for a full trailer. I got a trailer for Monarch, Legacy of Monsters. Yes, that's the new Godzilla series. It's debuting Friday, November 17th. That was a date that we got with this teaser trailer on Apple TV Plus. Starring Kurt Russell, Wyatt Russell, and John Goodman. What?
Yeah, apparently, he was
John
there.
Goodman reprising his role from Kong Skull Island, my favorite of the Monsterverse movies.
That makes more sense.
Yeah. So, Steve, this might be the show that gets me to purchase Apple TV Plus because, man, this trailer looked great. Movie quality effects, movie quality Godzilla, like that. We talked about when they released the photos for this, when they announced the name of the show, and they released a couple stills. One of those stills was Godzilla, and it was the scene that we see in this trailer of him turning around and screaming at someone hiding behind a car. And I think you and I said, like, hey, if the moving pictures look as good as these photos do, then it's going to be great. And they do. They do.
Mm-hmm.
It looks great. Top-notch quality, I think, here. What do you think of this?
I haven't been this excited about something MonsterVerse in a while. And this is Matt Shakman directing it as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So the trailer itself, I mean, like you said, the visuals look amazing. The Kurt Russell, Wyatt Russell thing that we had talked about in the past, for anyone who did not tune in for that, Kurt Russell is playing himself, or Wyatt Russell is playing Kurt Russell in flashbacks.
Yeah, they're playing the same character.
Yeah, Kurt Russell is modern day, and then Wyatt Russell is playing the flashbacks of the same character.
Yeah. And clearly showing some kind of like, just history of this company or trying to save or protect or defeat these monsters in some kind of way, just kind of more digging into the lore, I guess. And what I really liked about it is that I've mentioned this before, but the tone of these MonsterVerse movies can shift from one movie to the next. I think some are trying to be more serious, some are a little more lighthearted. And the most recent one, Godzilla vs. Kong, is just off the deep end, like just a batshit crazy movie. Still fun, but crazy. And this seems more like a step back from that, like trying to deliver some kind of more of a serious tone, and some actual drama and scares, possibly, instead of just being like a giant cartoon show, which I also enjoyed. I enjoyed King Kong attacking Godzilla with a giant glowing axe that he found at the center of the earth. I thought that was fun, but it's not necessarily what I want of like a serious drama based on people fighting Godzilla. So anyway, I'm down for this for sure. November 17th. My calendar is marked for sure.
So what is that? That brings it up to, what was there, 4 films so far?
4, yes, because there's the original Gareth Edwards Godzilla, and then they did
The 2
Kong Skull
Kongs.
Island. No, they just did one Kong. The Kong Skull
Godzilla
Island,
versus Kong.
Godzilla King of Monsters, and then Godzilla versus Kong. So yeah, there's just the 4. But they are making a 5th one, just called Godzilla Kong something else. But that's one of the ones that got pushed. Remember when Warner Brothers was like pushing their slate around? That got pushed to next year. Or later next year, I think. So I'll have to wait to see that. But in the meantime, we get this cool series.
Absolutely.
So awesome. Steve, should we talk about some comics?
I think we should. I think we both read some pretty good comics.
I think so.
Unless after me reading the one that you have a completely different read on it than you do.
I don't know. Are we both talking about this, or do you have your own book?
No, I have, for some reason, I have a phone playing music in my pocket.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But
are you going to review the phone, the music that it's playing?
No, I am not.
All right.
But I do have Hunger in the Dusk by G. Willow Wilson.
Ooh.
Or issue 2.
Oh, cool. Okay. Well, I tease this on our Instagram page, but I'm talking about a book that you mentioned on this show a few weeks ago.
Yes.
You already mentioned this to me, and I thought it looked cool. And then Jesse, Funky Town Comics, was like, you really got to read this book. It's on its 3rd printing, which means it's issue 1 is on its 3rd printing. And yes, there is Steve's copy as well for those viewing. A book being on its 3rd printing means that the first issue was so popular and sold out that they needed to print more of them to satisfy the demand. And then that sold out and was so popular, they needed to print more to satisfy the demand for issue 1 of this book, called Dwellings by a guy named Jay Stevens from a publication called Oni Press. And you may remember Steve talking about this book, or if you saw it on my Instagram tease, where the artwork for this book is very much very like kid-friendly cartoon looking. Like I've said a couple times, I think it kind of looks like Dexter's Laboratory, something on Cartoon Network in the 90s, or like a Warner Brothers cartoon, like a Looney Tunes or Tom and Jerry style. Like it seems like a very inoffensive art style. However, the stories are terrifying. This is a it's a very
yes they are.
It's a bigger book. It's like an expanded book. There's 2 full stories in here. And they're dark, and they're violent, and they're haunting. Both of them are. They're very effective horror stories, and they waste no time getting into them. At first, I just couldn't get over the mixing and matching of the art style versus the story that's being told. And I kept thinking, like, when I started each story, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a slow burn that builds to some, like a twist. And they're going to utilize the art style to really make me think that it's going to be some benign thing and then it'll be great. But no, it starts right away. It earns its horror stripes right away. The first like page or 2 of the story itself. And it just keeps going. It goes places that I don't expect. It goes further than I ever expect in both of the stories. It's just wildly good. I completely understand why it's on its 3rd printing. If you are someone that likes horror stories, horror comics, you 100% need to get yourself a copy of Dwellings by Jay Stevens from Oni Press. It's tremendous. I think they get away with a lot more, whether it be the violence that they show, the gore that they show. And yes, they do show gore in this book that looks like it's written for children. It's not. I just can't stop saying it. It's not a kid's book. It looks like it is. It's grown-ups. It's for grown-ups. But I think they get away with more of that stuff because of the art style. And it's just really great. And there's really cool, the design of it is great. Like even on the back, they have just like fake advertisements for Halloween costumes that are kind of based on some of the characters in the book. Like you would see at the back of like a Golden Age comic, or I don't know, like a Boy's Life magazine or something with like, it's like you're expecting an ad for like X-ray specs and stuff. And there's even some of that within the book as well. Like sometimes you turn a page and it looks like there's an ad.
Right.
Like there's
like
a full
page
ads in it.
Full page ad for something that you realize is like somehow tied into the story.
Yes, you turn another page and there's a character that is reading that magazine with that ad in it, and it's tied into the story. Yeah, for sure. Stuff like that. It's super cool. It's well done. And being somebody that writes comics and has looked for artists to hire to draw comics, and I always try to find an artist's work that I like, but I think matches the tone of the book that I'm writing. And this book tells me that maybe I don't have to care about that so much, because the full tilt horror of the writing is very different from the art style, and that just works so well for this book that it makes me think that it's not that matching that is not always as important as I think it is. I think the right combination can be vastly different and still work, which I don't know, is a tribute to the way this book is made, the stories that are told, the way it's drawn, and also just the medium of comics in general. So I can't recommend this book enough if you are into horror stories. It's fun, it's haunting, and it's great. Dwellings, Jay Stevens. Go get it.
Yeah, I remember reading that first story, and like you said, like 2 pages in, you're like, oh, okay, it's a horror story. And then 4 pages in, you're like, holy shit. And then 6 pages in, you're like, whoa. It just keeps keeps progressing.
Like,
and you get to the end, and you're like, I feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, like, more murdering.
Right.
Okay. Just more murder.
Yeah.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to like get too deep into the plot because I don't want to give away stuff, because it's like,
Oh yeah, no,
it's a ride.
keep it.
Yeah.
You keep it vague, but yeah, it's not for the faint of heart.
No,
Even though it looks
not
like
at
a
all.
Saturday morning cartoon. This is
Exactly.
not
That's the
Family
beauty of it.
Circle, folks.
No, not at all.
So I had the Hunger in the Dusk. We're continuing our indie trend this week.
Yeah.
So I got on this back when they released the first issue. Basically, IDW put out a D&D-esque comic written by G. Willow Wilson. And I was like, okay, sign me up. Where do I go?
Yeah, she's
so I
great.
grabbed a copy from Jesse. This is the continuation. I had the Brian Chang cover for the first one that was awesome, and this is the similarly Brian Chang cover for the second one.
Yeah, that's a gorgeous cover.
And he's been around for years doing various things, but
Yeah.
apparently signed up for some cover art for IDW. So G. Willow Wilson on writing, Chris Wildgoose and Msassyk on colors and pencils. And overall, the premise, and this was a great follow-up to the first issue. Think high fantasy D&D-esque story, but all that's left on Earth or whatever the planet is or area is are humans and orcs. And there is a uncomfortable need to team up against a third invading force. So you end up with the conflict and tension between the orcs and the humans needing to team up, and how they're teaming up basically creates some interfamily strife, some dynamics between this mercenary group that is extremely diverse, humans of all walks of life, and this orc healer, joining them as like a token of faith. And there's this, and that's basically the D&D party. And there's a lot of interplay, a lot of solid writing that doesn't rely on tropes of the genre. So it's got me in for, the second issue has definitely gotten me grabbing the third. So it's now
awesome.
officially on the pull, and a solid offering. I would highly recommend to anyone who's into that kind of high fantasy-ish feel. The art itself, let's see, give you a good page. Just not hyper realistic, but realistic enough in the fantasy sense. So
yeah, for sure.
You're looking at
I love the colors too.
Yeah, I mean, some various.
Oh wow.
It goes from anywhere from there. They have some scenes like up in the north and the tundra.
Oh, nice.
So it's a a wild variation throughout the book, and it's a nice mix and kind of keeps you moving. So
awesome.
Definitely recommend.
G. Willow Wilson really stretching her genre legs.
Yeah,
1 foot in
you
Poison
go from
Ivy.
Poison Ivy to that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Hunger and the Dusk. That's a cool title too. Awesome. What else is coming out this week in your local comic book store? We got Alligator Loki #1.
Sure.
I didn't know that Alligator was a big enough character to get its own book, but sure. Astonishing Iceman #2. Avengers Incorporated #1. Batman Gargoyle of Gotham #1. Coda #1. Danger Street #9. New run of Daredevil starting. Daredevil #1 starts this week. Regular Gargoyles #9. Ghost Rider #18. Green Lantern #3. Jesse, I don't know if you're listening. I don't know if you have ordered this book. I don't know anything about it. I don't know if it is widely available or whatever. But I would love to read a book called Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer #1. So I don't know if that book is on the shelves at Funky Town Comics this week. I'm getting it. I don't know if it will be, because it could be hard to get. It could be a very independent book. I don't know anything about it. I just read the name and put it on this list.
I do feel like being Auburn adjacent, we're contractually obligated to read that book.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so. Harriet Tubman Demon Slayer. Oh yeah. Also, House of Slaughter #17, Incredible Hulk #4, Miles Morales Spider-Man #10, Red Goblin #8, Something Epic #5, Star Trek Picard's Academy #1, Star Wars Darth Vader #38, Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi #1, Superman Lost, number 6. Undiscovered Country, number 25. Venom, number 25. Werewolf by Night, number 1. World's Finest Teen Titans, number 3. And X-Men Red, number 15. Lots of great stuff in your local comic book store. Steve, you pulling any of this besides Hunger in the Dusk? Anything else new on your pull list besides your submergence into the X-Men world?
No, I'll end up with Astonishing Iceman and X-Men Red because of that. And in all honesty, I'm still riding the Incredible Hulk train. Like this has been the issue 3 kept me going, so still there. And curious on do we know if Werewolf by Night's a one shot or if it's going to be an ongoing through?
I do not know, but I am very interested to get a look at that book and see what it looks like and see what it is.
Yeah. I'm also surprised House of Slaughter is still going strong. 17 issues. I guess I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I heard mixed reviews of it when it first came out, but I've heard it's gotten better. But I don't know. I haven't been following it. I'm just waiting for more Something is Killing the Children. That's all I want. That's all I want in the world. Speaking of your X-Men, I read a thing on Twitter from an account I follow that is a comic shop in, I'm holding my phone up like you guys can read it that far away. A comic shop in Buffalo, New York, called Pulp 716 Coffee and Comics. It's a comic book store that also sells coffee. Genius idea. They said something recently. I don't know if I can find it or I'll paraphrase it if I can't find it in like the next 2 seconds. Yes, they 2 days ago they said about 58% of our X-Men subscribers have canceled their X-Book subscriptions in the past year. The majority of them have subscribed to X-Books for 10 plus years. In addition, Gods, this new Marvel book that we haven't really talked about, but Gods is our lowest ordered Marvel first issue in the past 5 years. In the same time span, books that had similar subscription numbers, Saga and Something is Killing the Children, saw a slight increase in their subscriptions. People were getting the trades people that were getting the trades are now getting the monthly releases because they don't want to wait.
So there's a couple things there.
Yeah.
A lot of people were dropping their subs prior to Fall of X because things were hot garbage.
Yeah.
And so I get why they would drop their X subscriptions. This seems to be a nice reset, and they'll probably come back as soon as the reset's done. And Gods, well, it's Jonathan Hickman's new joint, is a $9.99 cover price.
Ooh,
because
yikes.
it's a 64-page book.
Oh, okay. Well, getting some kind of your money's worth, I guess.
Right, but
Still.
at the same time, like, are you going to pre-order that, or are you going to wait and see what happens? And if it's good, I'll buy it, and if not, I'm not.
Yeah,
That's where I'm at.
good point.
Like, no offense, Jesse, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. Somebody commented on that post by Pulp716 about, basically saying like, yeah, X-Men, it's too much to follow. There's too much going on. And they responded by saying, a longtime X-Men reader at our shop said the following, quote, I feel like my favorite pizza place put foie gras on my pie instead of pepperoni, thinking I'd like it because it's sophisticated and fancy. I just want pizza, man. So I get that. I get that analogy.
So 100% that was the whole Sinister setup. Like, in hindsight, if I grab some trades and read through it, I'll probably like, yeah, sure, it's fine.
Yeah.
But I wasn't going to sub to any of that because it was like, I can't. It's just too much.
I feel like some styles of writing and storytelling cater better to single issues.
Yep.
And some cater better to longer storytelling, like long form graphic novel storytelling style. And Hickman just might be one of those guys that, like, you need a big chunk of it. You need to dive in.
Well, no, because Hickman's been off of X for about 2 years now.
Oh, that's right.
Maybe
that's
3
right.
years.
He started it though.
Yep.
He started that whole arc thing. Yeah.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, it seems like the bookends have been solid and the middle was a little washy. And that's where they're losing a lot of people. I mean, you had all the Sinister stuff, and I get it.
Yeah. All right.
They'll
Cool.
be back.
Well,
they
my
always
friends,
are. It's the X-Men.
It's the X-Men. They're not going anywhere. I'm sure they'll just whatever they're doing now, they're probably going to reboot whenever the MCU announces whatever X-Men project they're going to do. They'll reboot everything to match.
Oh yeah.
What
I mean, in the
movies are doing, I feel
spring,
like.
I think they'll probably be to a point where they'll reboot everything back to
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah, makes sense.
they're all dead right now, so it's fine.
Yeah, yeah, it's totally fine.
Yeah.
Who cares? But Steve, I think that's all I got. You got anything else?
Yes, I do actually. Something
Oh,
that dropped
all right.
today.
Oh.
Since we haven't talked about Star Wars, Sean Levy has officially come out today and said that development had started on his Star Wars movie pre-strike.
Whoa, really?
Yep. So I know we had talked about in the past that he was one of the ones greenlit for a Star Wars film. Apparently, production had started on it prior to the strike.
Wow, that's interesting because he was not at Star Wars Celebration.
Yep.
Interesting.
So
Interesting. Gotta probably clarify that production starting doesn't necessarily mean that it's a green lit film.
correct.
Like everybody they brought out at Star Wars Celebration. Like they announced some plans, but I don't think any of those movies are officially green lit, especially during the strike. So I don't know. I have faith that they will move forward, but you never know. I feel like with Lucasfilm, you got to hold out a little bit. Just be like, they might change their minds because they do that a lot. They might cancel something. So we'll see. But interesting because we don't know anything about that movie.
No, we know
The Sean
nothing
Levy
at all.
one. Yeah. We'll probably know some more after Deadpool 3 comes out. And he's done with that. I feel like after that, then his next thing is going to be Star Wars. If it's still happening.
Yeah.
By then.
Yeah, I'm mildly confused because we had D23 this last weekend, and
Really?
didn't hear anything about Star Wars or anything,
No.
which may
I
have
didn't hear anything about anything.
didn't hear anything about anything. So
That was
Yeah.
last weekend? This weekend we just finished?
D23 Ultimate Disney Fan Event, August 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Well,
oh
I
no,
guess
that
they
was
can't,
okay. Never mind. That was 2024. That it was
Oh,
announced.
okay.
So yeah, I'm a little ahead of
announced.
time.
Okay. Also, even if they did have the convention, they probably can't announce too much. It's like Comic-Con because everyone's on strike. They can't really promote anything or do anything. So, what are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Well, I know what you can do,
Well, cool.
faithful listener.
Faithful listener. I thought you were talking to me.
Oh no.
I was gonna say, what
I
can
know
I
what
do?
you can do, Mike. No, I know what our faithful listeners can do. They can, catch more of us whenever we're streaming by subscribing and watching us on YouTube or, checking out in your feeds wherever your podcasts are found. If you have a chance, feel free to review us on Apple Podcasts or on YouTube. Usually helps other people find us. Beyond that, get a hold of us, the Multiverse Report at gmail.com, the Multiverse Report on all your socials, except for Blue Sky, which is Multiverse Report.
No,
it was
just
too
Multiverse
long.
Report.
So
Okay.
as of today, we are
Yes.
on the Twitter, X, whatever alternative that seems to be a much happier place.
I like it quite a bit. I like
Yeah.
Blue Sky. If anyone wants a code, I got a couple codes.
Same.
Reach out. Let me know. I'll invite you. But you have to follow the Multiverse Report. That's the one
That's
condition.
your one caveat.
And me. And
Yeah,
Steve.
I don't care if you follow me. Follow the Multiverse Report and follow Mike.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm
I'll take it.
I'm bad at social media.
Yeah, that's okay. All right. Well, if that's it for me. It's it for Steve. Until next time, which will be Wednesday with our episode 5 review of Ahsoka. Until then, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the multiverse.